Hey everyone, welcome to Cape Breton Highlands National Park in Nova Scotia, Canada. This is my favorite place in the world. This is where I come whenever I need to feel recharged. And what I want to do in the video blog moving forward, and this is my first one in 4 years, is I'd like to answer questions. So feel free to send questions to drew@drewdudley.ca or tweet them to me at @nuancedrew. And as we move forward in the coming weeks, we'll set up some video blogs to do my best to answer them. I'll start with one that I was asked after a keynote recently, and someone asked, how do you keep a healthy work-life balance? And I've never necessarily been the best guy to answer that question, but I have gotten better at it. And I think it started when I started to realize that you can't think of it as balance. Balance gives you this idea that things are equal, that for every minute you spend on something you don't want to do, you get to spend a minute on something you do. And we know that's not really how life works. I can't be up here for one day for every day that I have to be out on the road. So I think a healthier way to look at it is in terms of ratios. Do you have a healthy ratio between the things in your life that take energy from you and the things in your life that give you energy? And for me, I think it takes looking at obligations. We all have obligations in our life. You have to get to work, you have to get projects done, you have to pick up the kids and get lunches made, and that's fine. We should have obligations. The problem is when all the obligations in a given day in your life are obligations that you've made to other people, it is hard to feel like you're in charge of your own life. And it's hard to feel like a leader when you don't feel in charge of your own life. You can't lead other people until you lead yourself. So I think the key is to make sure that there's a good ratio between obligations you make for yourself and to yourself and obligations you make to other people. It doesn't have to be even. It doesn't have to be even in terms of number. It doesn't have to be even in terms of the time it takes, because you may have to go to work for 8 hours a day and have obligations there, but you can still fill your life with obligations to yourself. The question is, do you have any right now? I didn't. For a lot of my life, I didn't have obligations to myself. It's only recently I started making obligations like, I will walk 2 hours a day to be healthier. I will listen to my favorite song at least once a day. I will email or text a friend of mine just to say hi once a day. These don't take nearly as much time as my obligations related to work, but what happens is when I take a look at the overall number of obligations I've created for myself in a given day, I have about 35 to 40% that are obligations for me, to give things to my life that are important to me, that are tied to my values, versus the 60% or so that I still give to other people. Obligations you make to yourself can still be obligations for other people. It's simply that you're doing them because it's tied to something that's going to add something important to you, to your life. So take a moment to think about, what are my obligations in a given day? And am I consciously creating some that are tied to adding value and adding happiness, adding health to my life? And I think making sure that we find a ratio that's positive, and it doesn't have to be 1-to-1. It can be 3 obligations to other people versus 1 to yourself. But just making sure you take the time to fill those obligations to yourself is an extraordinarily empowering thing. I don't know for sure the secret to happiness. I do think that happiness comes when a large percentage of the things that you have to do every day are things that you want to do. Things that you want to do need to be made into obligations you make to yourself. They don't have to be big, they don't have to be complex, but they do have to be there, and they have to be there on a daily basis. Otherwise, you end up like you're living your life for other people all the time, and that is not a healthy balance at all. Give up the idea of balance and start focusing in terms of positive ratio, and start doing that by looking at your obligations to start. How many do you have for you? They don't have to be big, but they do have to be there. Thanks guys, I'll be back with new videos soon.